Hi everyone, welcome to our 16th From the Shack barbecue show. Now the weather's been a bit dodgy over the last few days and it's definitely beginning to feel a bit autumnal. Elky, how are you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. The weather's been terrible, isn't it? I mean, I keep waiting for this heat wave that is apparently coming, but it doesn't seem to be coming anywhere, does it? You know, it's September now. But no, I'm good. Been getting to grips with my Artiflame over the last couple of weeks, getting it seasoned, doing a couple of cooks on there, so that's been fun. Also working behind the scenes on some special things coming up, potentially a website, and hot off the press, you heard it here first, I'm looking to start some barbecue classes next year, so keep your eyes peeled.
Elky, those barbecue classes sound good. Now let's take a look at what's coming up in today's show.
Coming up, Elky creates his very own Juicy Lucy burgers. Neal makes sweet pepper chicken on his Kamado Joe Classic 2. Instead of one special guest, we have many, as we take a look at some of our favourite moments from our brilliant guests throughout the series. And in What's Cooking, we take a look at what you, the barbecue community, have been up to. Welcome to From the Shack.
Lots coming up in today's show. Now, this is our final From the Shack programme for 2021. It's a bit of a sad moment, Elky, but what have been your favourite cooks this year?
It is a bit of a sad moment, but I mean, what a year we've had, what a couple of years we've had with the lockdown barbecue show From the Shack, and we're just taking a short break over the winter while we reconvene. Favourite cooks, a couple of the recent ones probably spring to mind. The Your shawarma that I did on the Joe Tisserie was immense, and I've got to say those beef ribs that I did recently on the Kettle Joe were definitely up there as one of my favourites. What about you, mate?
I think one of my favourites has got to be doing a coq au vin. I didn't think it was possible to do it on a barbecue, and it was absolutely delicious. Now, Elky, let's take a look at what you've been cooking.
So today, it's all about the Juicy Lucy. Now, if you don't know what a Juicy Lucy is, essentially a burger, but with the cheese inside the burger and not on the outside. Now, I'm going to be making a Mexican-inspired Juicy Lucy. I've got some ground mince here, and I'm going to stuff this with some Mexican-flavoured cheese. And then we're going to build a burger using some salsa, some sour cream, some jalapenos, all the kind of flavours you'd associate with Mexican food, maybe nachos, but it's all going to be in a burger, in a bun. How good does that sound? So what I've got in front of me here is 425-gram balls of mince. Now these are a mixture of beef and pork. You can just use beef. Use a nice bit of beef with a lovely fat content in there, 20%, 25% or whatever. So these are balled up, and what I need to do is make them flat, put some cheese in the middle, and then put another one on top, and then we want to seal the edges so none of that cheese escapes. So we're going to crack on and do just that. So there you go, there's the start of our Juicy Lucy's, our Mexican Juicy Lucy's. Now we've got the cheese inside the beef. We've put a couple of slices of Mexican cheese in, both broke it down a little bit so it's nice and thick. We want this cheese to ooze out at the end, hopefully that is the plan. So we just want to go around and just seal up any kind of holes that we can see, because like I said, we want maximum chance of that cheese not escaping. I'm going to hit these up with some of this Amigos with everything Mexican rub. They're Mexican Juicy Lucy's, we're going to put a Mexican rub on there. So I'm going to get these all over this, and then they're ready for the barbecue. Now I'm going to be using my Kettle Joe for this. So I've got the Kettle Joe fired up. I've got some cherry wood in there for some smoke, and I've got the slow roller in place. I'm going to cook these at about 150 Celsius, which is around 300 Fahrenheit. Get a nice bit of smoke on there and bring them up to an internal temperature of about 60 to 65 degrees. And then we're going to remove the slow roller. We're going to set it up for high heat grilling, and I'm going to get these seared off just to finish them off at the end. Obviously, we're going to toast up some buns. We're going to finish these off with some jalapenos. We'll put some sour cream in the buns. We're going to put some salsa in the buns. We're going to put some nachos in there for some crunch as well. So these are going to be good. So let's just crack on, get over to the smoker, get them smoked, get them grilled, and get our burgers built. And there you go, you see we've got some nice smoke on these. Once they were smoked, we got up to about 55, 60 degrees Celsius. I've taken a slow roller out, we've put the grill grate in place over that high heat. We've got a lovely sear on here now. These are cooked to about 70 degrees internal temperature. We've then toasted the buns, we've got some sour cream on the bottom, we've got our Juicy Lucy's with that Mexican cheese in the middle, we've got some jalapenos, we've got some Doritos, nachos, and we've got some salsa on top. So without further ado, let's just take a knife, slice into one, and see exactly how we've done. Absolute winner. I mean, look at that cheese just oozing out of that burger. So that's my Mexican inspired Juicy Lucy. I do hope you'll give it a go, because these, I can already tell, are going to be an absolute beaut. Cheers.
Elky, those burgers look so good. But did you know the Juicy Lucy was created in Minneapolis?
I didn't know that. You're a fountain of knowledge, and I'm always learning on this show, mate. I put a little Mexican twist on mine with the Mexican cheese, bit of salsa in there, and they were really good. I mean, I'm a big fan of the smash burger, but I've got to say, these ones went down a treat. Now, you've been having a little cook on your Kamado Joe. Should we see what you've been up to?
In today's outdoor living, I'm making sweet pepper chicken. It's a tasty dish and quite easy to make. For this recipe, you'll need 4 skinless chicken breasts, and I'm going to make a marinade for the chicken. I'll be cooking the chicken on my Kamado Joe Classic 2 over direct and indirect heat. For the marinade, you'll need 1 tablespoon of soft brown sugar, 4 tablespoons of olive oil, a tablespoon of smoked paprika, a teaspoon of dried thyme, and finally a spoonful of salt and pepper. Using a bowl that's big enough for the chicken, add the marinade ingredients and give them a good stir. Add the chicken breasts and coat them thoroughly with the mixture. Cover the bowl with cling film and place in the fridge for at least a couple of hours. I'm going to serve the chicken breasts with a red pepper, treacle and cola sauce. Now that might sound like a strange combination, but it's an absolute winner. To make the sauce, you'll need 1 long red pepper chopped into tiny pieces, 400 millilitres of cola, a teaspoon of dried oregano, 160 grams of black treacle, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, a 400 gram tin of chopped tomatoes, and 150 millilitres of cider vinegar. 45 minutes or so before you're going to cook on the barbecue, remove the chicken from the fridge so it returns to room temperature. Prepare your barbecue for indirect and direct cooking. Light your charcoal and bring it up to temperature. I'm going to make the sauce in a Dutch oven. Place all the ingredients into the pot and stir on a regular basis. Cook for around 25 minutes or until the mixture has reduced by half. Remove from the barbecue and leave to cool slightly, then blend thoroughly with a hand blender. Place the marinated chicken breasts on the barbecue and cook directly over the charcoal for 4 minutes on either side before moving over to the indirect heat side. Once the chicken reaches an internal temperature of 75 degrees C, it's done. To check this, I'm using my Thermopen probe. Remove the chicken from the barbecue and let it rest for a couple of minutes while the sauce is reheated. This dish is a winner. The marinated chicken works so well with the sauce, and I'm serving the chicken breast with new potatoes, baby corn and green beans. It's a perfect combination. If you're thinking about upping your barbecue game, why not give Barbecue Barn a call? They've got shops in Sidcup and Leigh-on-Sea, and they're on hand to give you some great advice on which barbecue kit's right for you.
Elky, those chicken breasts were delicious, and the sauce was pretty tasty too.
I've got to say, the sauce sounded intriguing, but it looked great at the end, and the colour you had on that chicken, mate, looked really good. Nice dish.
It was lovely. Now, Elky, would you like to introduce our special guest for the show?
Yes, our special guest for the show, as it's our last show of 2021, we got a little bit nostalgic and we put together a little compilation of some of the favourite guests that we've had on the show over the lockdown barbecue show and from the shack. So we hope you enjoy it.
I'm a huge fan of yours. I've got many of your books. I think it's the Barbecue Bible that first kind of put me on my barbecue journey, and I've got it here, and you can see how much it gets used by, you know, some of the pages that are just kind of falling out of it.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
It's certainly had some use.
I love to see those. Love to see those battle worn copies.
You've obviously got, I think it's 31 books. You've got numerous TV shows. You've got the Barbecue University. When did your love of barbecue and cooking over fire begin?
My professional interest actually dates from 1994. In particular, November 1994, when I had this, you might call it a satori or illumination or a flash of inspiration or the divine interference or whatever. But I had the idea that grilling is the world's most universal and ancient cooking method, but everywhere it's done differently. So wouldn't it be cool to travel around the world and write about it? And that thought led to the Barbecue Bible. And the Barbecue Bible led me to, one night I sat down, and night that may or may not have been substance enhanced, and I made a list of all the things I wanted to do in barbecue. And there was a website, a TV show, a line of products, a foreign program, Barbecue University. And I'm a great believer in lists. So I wrote all this stuff down on a list, and damn if it all hasn't all happened over the last 20 years.
Jess, can you tell us the main differences between Texan barbecue styles and techniques and styles in different southern states?
Yeah, so traditionally, Texas was one of the only barbecue styles that had beef in it, and obviously it's because of the agrarian culture. So given that there were a lot of cattle in Texas, of course, you had beef barbecue, and there were a lot of German and Czech immigrants too. So it was sort of a meshing of the German heritage of smoking meats with the cattle that they had. And Kansas City is due north from Texas. And in fact, there was a cattle trail where they used to drive the cattle up north to be processed and then shipped to the East Coast. So that's why Kansas City is the only other city where you do find brisket on the menu, although they do it a little bit differently. And then, of course, in the East Coast, you've got the Carolinas that's so famous for their hog barbecue, either whole hog or vinegar or mustard style sauces, which, of course, pair really well with pork, being that it's so fatty and needs something to cut through the richness. But the funny part is, these regional styles have all but disappeared. And it's one of those, it remains to be seen if it's a good thing or not. People are opening barbecue joints all over the country and all over the world, and they're cherry picking the best elements from the different barbecues. So you'll find pulled pork and whole hog. Like, we're having people do whole hog in Texas, and that's not at all part of our heritage. There's my little staffy. Sorry, I have to point out the elephant in the room. So you're getting, you can go to a hometown barbecue in Brooklyn with this T-shirt, and you can get Jamaican style jerk ribs and pastrami bacon, but the best beef rib inspired by Texas, and it's the best of everything. So, hey, stop it. Sorry. So those are the traditions, but really you can walk into barbecue joints all over the world, and that regionality is slowly disappearing.
You used to run a feature in FHM, didn't you? I always remember DJ Barbecue feature in FHM quite many years ago now. So
I got some of those downstairs, man.
Have you really?
Yeah, it's always a really pretty girl on the front,
There was, yeah. So how did that come about? I mean, how was DJ Barbecue born, so to speak?
The brand started in 2012 when I was DJing on the banks of Loch Ness at a festival called Rock Ness.
Okay.
And I was the headline DJ on the Saturday night. The tent was packed. It was like 15 deep out. And then all the people dancing started taking their clothes off. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do when I'm 40? Am I going to keep playing the half naked, 20-something-year-olds? Maybe Fatboy Slim can get away with it, but maybe not DJ. I was DJ Fuzzy Nuts then. And so I decided, I had this epiphany that I would put my love of barbecue, my love of DJing, because I always did them both, but never really together, and just kind of create this catertainment area. So at festivals, instead of making 500 quid a night, I can maybe make, 800 quid, $1,000 a night, depending on the festival. But they might come for the food, and then they'll stay for the music, or the other way around. That way we kind of become a destination, and that's why we created DJ Barbecue.
And what a creation! What a creation!
Hoggy, you've gone from winning the Ashes to now cooking with Ashes. When did your love of barbecue begin?
Oh, I'm loving that. Ashes to ashes, eh? Most probably when I was 18, I was lucky enough to be able to go over to South Africa and play cricket in South Africa for 6 months in Johannesburg, of all places, for the Pirates, for the Greenside Pirates. And they like to barbecue, but they call it braai. So I used to braai every weekend, every night. And they were brilliant. And that's most probably where it first kicked off, where I thought when you grew up in England that a barbecue was burnt chicken or raw chicken, burnt sausages and burgers. But when you go to South Africa and you have the snook braais and they have the boerewors on there, and then they do the nice spatchcock chicken they're called flatties and the steaks, it just opens your eyes to everything. And they used to have a tradition, or they did in my club, and it was called drinking wood. They used to cook on an iron wood called Kamado Joe, which is the really dense wood that gives off a lot of heat, and the ashes stay hot for a long time. But before you put the proper cooking wood onto the braai, you have to light it, so they get soft wood. So they put the soft wood to get the fire going before they put the proper wood on. And we used to have a stack of drinking wood up to here. And every time the women came around and said, is it ready to cook? Or, no, there's still too flamed, it's still hot. So when they turn the back, you put some more soft wood onto the fire, so the flames kept on going. When they come back 20 minutes later, no, it's still too hot. And so like after an hour and a half after we finished drinking, we'd put the cooking wood on it, and we'd cook after maybe an hour and a half of drinking.
Now, burgers are obviously one of your specialities. Is the smash burger king?
I love the smash burger. Yes, I'll call it king, because you get that, that Maillard reaction, just a nice caramelized surface, and it's so hot and sizzling, when you're eating it. I mean, you can serve those right off the flat top onto a bun. Yes, burger nirvana. I love it. I'm
a big fan of the smash burger, but over here in the UK, there's some that are still not quite converted. They're saying, oh, you're smashing all the juice out of them. You're getting no flame grill flavour. But what you lose from that, you're not smashing the juice out first and foremost, but what you lose from the flame grill flavour, you gain from that crust. The crust is just die for, isn't it?
And I get that in the comments. It's like, no, if I flipped it after searing that one side, then smashed it again, yeah, you're going to lose a lot of juice. But smashing raw meat, you're not losing any juice. That's it's a wives' tale, one of the many wives' tales we deal with in the barbecue community.
Malcolm, you've won many competitions. Which one are you most proud of?
That's a hard one, because I guess what really got me started and serious was 2006. We entered the amateur division of Memphis and May World Championship for the very first time. And the first time we entered it, we won. And that meant we had to turn pro. So in 2006, I actually became a pro competition barbecue cook. And so that's really what kicked it all off. The next year, Food Network followed us around and did one of their specials on 3 barbecue teams. And we were the young and up-and-comers. So that was exciting, and then from there we just kind of blew up.
Well, I'm definitely not known for cooking and eating a lot of vegetables, and I blame my parents for that, for force-feeding me when I was younger. But I've got a copy of your book, Charred, and I have cooked a few dishes from it as side dishes, and obviously from my wife that does eat a lot of vegetables. What gave you the idea for Charred? How did it come about?
I think it's because I eat meat. I really like eating meat, but I also really like eating vegetables. And obviously because I grow quite a lot of vegetables, I've often got a glut of stuff. And it just struck me that barbecue's kind of like the last bastion of the carnivore, isn't it? That's what it feels like, and actually, if you think barbecue is obviously a very celebratory meal that you would share with your friends and your family, and people make parties of it, don't they? And any other meal that you would do that with friends and family, like Sunday roast, for example, you'd have one kind of centerpiece joint, and then you'd have a lot of lovely side dishes that you'd thought about, and it would all come together as a sort of balanced kind of meal. But it struck me that actually barbecue's pretty much the only meal where you might be expected to eat a sausage, a bit of steak, a chicken wing, you know, all in the same meal. And I don't want to eat like that. It's not kind of how I want to sort of eat. So for me, it was about making the whole thing a bit more omnivorous and a bit more balanced.
It is a fantastic book. I've got a couple of the other books as well. The wood-fired oven cookbook.
Yeah.
How to eat outside as well.
That one, that's good. That kind of, I'm really proud of that book, and I loved writing it, but it didn't sell very well. I think it kind of came a few years before its time, really.
Barbecue is obviously seen as a lot of meat, and you're bringing vegetables into the equation. It's also somewhat historically been viewed as a bit of a man's domain. We know this isn't true, you know, and there's people like yourselves and others that are flying the flag, you know, and producing absolutely fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
What advice can you offer to women that, you know, to get out there, get over the fire, get with the tongs, and you know, push the man to one side and take over?
I think you just have to kind of get stuck in, don't you? But I think actually maybe it's more for the men to step aside and sort of let women do it. And I think women make brilliant barbecuers, because we're just, I don't want to sort of be mean about men, because, you know, but women are really good at multitasking, and you need that with fire. You know, if you've got different dishes on the go at the same time, and it's not like you can sort of dial the knob up and down like you would on your hob or something. You have to be really good at kind of managing different things at the same time. So actually, I think women make brilliant barbecuers, and I think they need maybe a bit more confidence that they can do it, or that they're kind of allowed to do it, if that makes sense.
I've seen one of your videos recently, a turkey ballotine, and it looked absolutely amazing. Now, where do you come up with your ideas?
You know, I'm classically French trained. You know, I was a chef in New York City for quite some time, in New Zealand, in a very famous French restaurant in New Zealand. And so that's just a classical technique that we used to do with chickens. And I don't want to confuse people. You know, there's a difference between showcasing your culinary might and giving people elevated techniques that they can do at home. I'm not trying to show off. This is something that I think will help people at home, and I know they can do it. So we used to bone out chickens, and I had a Vietnamese chef who was also classically French trained, and she could bone out a chicken with a meat cleaver. She could bone out a freaking whole chicken with just this part of the cleaver, and have the bones in the stock pot, the feathers gone, and everything in under 5 minutes. It was incredible. And she was about 5'2", and every time she finished, she'd cross her arms and she'd say, "That's how Daddy makes pancakes." I don't know, but I freaking loved it, you know. And so I said, I want to give that feeling to everybody when they slice into that perfect ballantine, and they say, nobody's heard of a ballantine. Everybody knows roulade. So now I got to take everybody on this culinary journey of saying, okay, a roulade is technically just something that's rolled in a pinwheel shape and then seared or cooked. A galantine, which is getting a little bit closer to a ballantine. A galantine is something that is, galantines and ballantines are different than a roulade because they're wrapped in the skin of the animal that they're using. So for us, it was turkey. But then a galantine is served cold, G-A-L being gelatin, and ballantine can be served hot and roasted. So I had to take people on this culinary journey from, it's not a roulade, you might not have heard of galantine, but this is what this is. It's actually a ballantine, and not lose them. It'd be so easy to lose them. So that's where the enthusiasm comes in. That's where the cutting it up and having fun comes in, and edutainment comes in. And ever since we started taking people on these little adventures, and it's just not, you know, hey guys, Chef Eric here today. We're going to do chicken thighs for a brisket or a pork butt. We've seen the engagement rate just go through the roof. Okay? And so I'm excited about that, because I think in order for something to be remarkable, by definition, people have to be able to want to share it or remark on it. And if they're not doing that, it's a waste of my time. I'm wasting everybody's time if I'm not doing stuff that's a little bit elevated, and I'll be bored to tears. I'm not about it. Not about it.
Rule, during the summer, you made a weekly podcast with Chef Eric called Fired Up. And in one of your programs, you talked about vegan sausages. Would you like to tell us about it?
If I knew this interview was going to be so tough, I would have never said yes. I don't like vegan processed food. That's my whole thing. It's like, who thinks of, it's like the ultimate waste. It's like something that I really feel strongly about. It's like same like fake hamburgers, fake meat. If you want to be vegan, or you have to be vegan because of your diet, then there are so many great recipes that are vegan. Why trying to make something that it's not? Like the Valais chicken you buy in the supermarkets, you know, the rubbery stuff that's made out of something that I don't understand what it is. But what they do is just go into a factory, put some stuff together, and then make it something that it's not, while you can have this beautiful recipe that's already vegan. It is really bad for the environment. That's step one, because it has extra processing. They have to put a plant down, and they have to put things together. So bad for the environment. It tastes absolutely horrible. So why would you eat it? And in the end, you have so many great alternatives. So to me, it doesn't make sense. And you pay a lot of money for it. So when somebody asks me like, hey, do you like or do you have a vegan option at the barbecue, like a vegan hamburger? It's definitely always no. Look, I made this awesome grilled salad. It's really fantastic. It serves as a meal as well. Please take that, but don't ask me for vegan sausage or vegan hamburger. It's like, that will be a great way to ruin the day.
A few years ago, I see wok boxes start popping up, and then before you know it, it looked like it just went crazy. I mean, there's wok boxes everywhere. It seemed to be like a bit of a whirlwind.
Yeah, it's been great, man. It's been awesome. So we launched in 2016. You know, we bootstrapped the business, man. We had no external funding, so we decided to launch on Indiegogo, which is like Kickstarter for the people that don't know. And so it's like, what you basically do is you give a discount to a consumer to be able to purchase the product, but they have to wait a period of time because they're essentially helping you fund it. So we designed it, we got it all completely tooled, and we got manufacturing partners on standby, but we just couldn't afford to order the volume of stock that we were ordering. It was like minimum order was like £250,000. And so as a small business, we can do it. So we went live on Indiegogo to launch it, and it just kicked off, man. It was crazy. It was great. You know, we had sub 5K marketing budget. I'm like a marketeer at heart. It's what I love selling, and I love interacting and networking with people. So we joined a competition called Pitch to Rich, which was Richard Branson's first ever like Dragon's Den style competition that he launched. We joined up with that, and then I created a couple of interesting press releases, like Rock Boxes after Richard's dough and all of that stuff. And we just got a couple of press releases out like that, and just, you know, like some of the national papers just grabbed onto it, and it sort of like snowballed a little bit, not massively, but a little bit. Like Daily Mail started writing about Rock Box completely unprompted. It was like they just, you know, they just really enjoyed the product, and so we got a good bit of PR. And then when we had a countdown to launch, you know, we'd got sort of 2,500 people on a database that were interested in purchasing, and we launched, and we converted half of the people on the list. So we had $100,000 funding target, which we had to achieve in a month, and we actually achieved it in something like, I think it was like 7 hours, something like that. So it was like, and then we hit 600,000 in sales within 4 days of running the campaign. It was crazy, man. I tell you what, for a little business owner and like someone that's just like so wet behind the ears, so ambitious, really want to like share wood-fired cooking with the world. It was like a Euro Millions lottery win, right? Like having a funding program like that, it was insane, man. You launch it, and the product that you've obsessed over for 3 years, blood, sweat and tears and all of that jazz. We had to work so hard to get it out because it was like so expensive, so difficult to design. And so when you see it get that traction, it was incredible, man. It was such an achievement for the business, and it was a real turning point for the company's future.
Now, Dan, when you venture out and you eat out, where are the best UK curry houses?
Oh, they're all over the place. There's some great ones. There's great places in Bradford that I love. I love going to London because there's such a selection down there. One of my favorite places is a place called Lahore Kebab House, which isn't fancy at all, but this place is just crazy. And you can watch the chefs in the back. They have a big open kitchen, and like watching them cook, And obviously, if you want to go up market, there's places like Cinnamon Club and those which are very impressive as well.
Obviously, barbecue here in the UK is a lot different to the rest of the world. I feel like we're starting to diversify a lot more. But is there any techniques or any barbecue or cuisines that you'd like to see from kind of other countries implemented here in the UK?
I think some cuisines, like we're talking about sort of Southeast Asian cuisine, like, with Thai food. And I think in the last, 10 years in England, I think Thai food's really gone into like the kind of the hyper regionalisation of Thai food. And we've seen that with different cuisines. And I'd like to see that like more with food from like different African countries, rather than Africa being seen as this like homogenous mass, actually celebrating the food and the kind of, especially the fire cooking there. And the same with like jerk. I think jerk in this country, I don't know whether it's had to be kind of toned down a bit, I don't know, and almost like polished, but I think there are some people doing amazing jerk, but again, it's kind of almost serving like it's quite niche, and I'd like to see that kind of celebrated more, like being really true to itself on a much bigger platform. Like I'd love to see that.
Your book, Fire and Food, is it's been
Food and Fire.
Food and Fire. I always get it the wrong way around.
Yeah,
it's been a massive inspiration to the barbecue community, and it's gone down really well, hasn't it? Now,
yeah.
There's
Thank
room
you.
for the second book. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so Food and Fire has been blown my mind, really, how popular it's done. I think it's on its 4th reprint now, which is way bigger than I ever thought and the publisher ever thought. So I love it when people share a cook from it, and that for me is what it's about. That gets me, that's what it's about. That's why I do it. The publisher came back to me and said, look, it's done really well. Would you consider doing another one? And for a long time I was like, no more books. No, because it's quite stressful to, people think it's just chucking a few recipes together and that's it. But it's quite stressful process to write a book. And so they gave me a 2-month deadline to write a book, which is pretty brutal, really. I'd had a few ideas floating around, but quite often when people get started, they cook their sausages and burgers and stuff, don't they? And they're basics. And one of the things that they look to do after that is cook some skewers. So I thought it was an opportunity to sort of give people a bit of inspiration about how to cook skewers and to think about what they're cooking.
We all know that food just tastes so much better over fire, doesn't it?
It does, and I think I've always said this is an honest relationship. If you see a chef cooking with a piece of fire kit, most of the times now it's on show. Didn't used to be, or it did. If you went to Turkish restaurants, they always have the big fire pit at the front. But there's a trust element when you see someone cooking over fire. It can't be forced. It can't be replicated. It can't be faked. You have to really do it. And there's an element of jeopardy, isn't there? There's some part of it you think it's going to burn the food or burn themselves, or the whole thing's going to go up. It's quite an exciting thing to see. And it's about trust as well. You trust that person to cook for you. And that's about a relationship. And relationship is what, makes us tick. And that's what feels like you're actually together in the restaurant, I think. And I think that's been key to the change.
And the theatre of it all as well, when it is all on show and you've got the fires all on the go. I mean, the theatre part of it's just great as well, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and it's great when it goes tits up sometimes. It is really intriguing to watch, and you have to play it. It's you can't turn it up like gas. You have to plan, and there's a sort of, you get in a rhythm. And I talk to chefs about this, and chefs who work a grill, and they definitely get into a groove and a timing thing, and it's quite, although it's hard work, I mean, especially in the summer, some of these big places like Hawksmoor, if you go into those, it's like going into the bowels of the Titanic. It's just, there's a line of fire, literally. Sometimes there's 3 big bits of kit on the go, and don't get me wrong, it is brutal in there. but there's definitely a sort of a rhythm and almost a meditation about it, you know. And so yeah, I find that I meet chefs who cook on fire seem to like, they go over that way, and it's not very often they come back the other way.
Wow, Elky, we've certainly spoken to some amazing people in the barbecue community.
I got all nostalgic watching that back. I mean, we've had some amazing guests, you know, they've all had some great stories to tell, and I'm just amazed at what we've achieved and some of the guests that we've managed to get on the show. Unreal.
It's been so much fun. Now, thank you for continuing to send us your amazing barbecue photos. Let's see what you've been up to in What's Cooking. Elky, there are some great photos there, but which was your favourite?
Oh, throughout the whole year, throughout the whole series, there's been some great photos and some amazing cooks. Now, my favourite on this episode is going to be Twisted Ribs Barbecue. He's done the spatchcock jerk poussin. It looked absolutely unreal.
It looked fantastic. Now, thank you so much for watching the show. That's it for this series, and we'll see you again next year. And a big thank you to our programme sponsor, Kamado Joe, and our feature sponsors, Philip Warren Butchers, Barbecue Barn, and Thermapen. We'll see you next year.
Yeah, and as always, a huge thanks from me, guys. Keep those fires burning, and I can't wait to see you again next year.